Hello and welcome to nature's very own freezer. It's what it's felt like for most of the last week or so. Pretty much like the rest of the UK, we've had some really cold temperatures. Temperatures of -5 and 6 overnight have recently, over the last day, night or so, got a bit less severe, and we've been seeing more like -2s. Now in today's programme we shall be looking at what you could be sowing during the month of January, and also what you could be harvesting. And then when we go indoors, we shall take a first look at the veg gardening calendar. Welcome back to the No Dig Norfolk Gardener. And our garden here in Norfolk, where we garden, is midway between the fine city of Norwich and the coastal town of Great Yarmouth. And we garden in Zone 9A. So, sowing for the month of January. Now you may wonder why this video is coming out a little later than usual, because normally the sowing jobs I do at the same time as the jobs for the month. Well, the truth of the matter is that there's no hurry to sow anything in January. January is generally the coldest month of the year in the UK on average, when we see the coldest temperatures, and unless you have space indoors to be able to keep your plants, and in some cases to have heat mats or heated propagators in order to aid the propagation, really isn't that much to be sown. Equally, there's nothing to be gained from sowing anything outside. You've seen what it's been like here today. Still really cold. I think it has just crept above freezing. When I looked at the thermometer, it's about 2 degrees at the moment, but a lot of the ground is still frozen, and it's far too cold to be able to sow anything and to expect it to be able to germinate. However, if you wanted to be sowing something during the month of January, you could sow things such as broad beans. Now, broad beans, as you know, we've sown ours back in the autumn, so beginning of November when we sowed ours, and they went out into the ground in December. And that's always a chance that the gardener takes. As you can see, it's been really frosty, and I think the pictures we took right at the beginning of the video, you could see that those plants have now been frozen yet again, because we had that big freeze at the beginning of December. So the jury's out as to how they'll be. We'll find out once the temperatures do stay above freezing during the day for some period of time, and see if they do survive. If they don't, later on this month or even going into next month, still fine to be able to sow broad beans. Now also outdoors this month, providing the ground is not frozen like it is at the moment, you could also be planting some garlic. And it's probably really the last chance for you to be able to plant garlic that's going to overwinter. Much beyond the second half of February, you want to be planting garlic that is suited for spring planting. Also, during the month of January, you could be starting seed off for lettuce and spinach. They really want to be started off in modules and undercover. As far as brassicas go, you could be sowing this month some cabbage seed or cauliflower seed. For us, however, here, we don't actually sow ours until February, but you will find varieties that you can actually sow during the month of January. And we find here in our garden in Norfolk that if we sow our cauliflowers and cabbages that we want to harvest early summer, in the first half of February, then that's when we get them. So in February I tend to sow our cabbages and cauliflowers and calabrese, and they will all give us a harvest here in June, which is when I want them. Of course, also in January you could be sowing your onion seeds. Now, I do know a lot of people that start their onion seeds off in December. It's traditional to start them off on Boxing Day, or so it's said, but I think that that's probably got a lot to do with people that want either very large onions, or maybe have a much shorter growing season, or maybe you simply want to have your onions ready earlier in order to be able to show them at an exhibition. However, that's not for us. I don't really want to be doing all the potting on, and particularly wasting all the money on compost that involves with the potting on. And like most of the seed that we sow and the vegetables that we look to grow here in our garden, we look to sow the seed, and somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks they're out of those modules and into the ground. I don't really see the need for keep potting things on so they get really, really large. And you've seen the results of our vegetables, so you can see that actually it does work. If you are watching our channel for the first time, go back and look at our harvesting playlists, and you'll be able to see, just how good the harvests are by using the methods that we use. And if you like what we do and you like our videos, then please subscribe to our channel. We'd love you to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to hit the bell and switch on the notifications so that you'll be informed whenever we upload a video. Now, we shall be sowing our onion seed over the next week. We are fast approaching the end of January, and so that's time for us to be thinking about that. And we use the multi-sown method, and there could be 6, 7, up to 8 seeds within that cell. And then once they've germinated, they all go out together and grow together in the ground. And then we'll thin them down at some point when they're the size of spring onions, thin them down to probably 4 to 5 per module, and then let them grow on to become medium-sized onions and give us lots of lovely onions that we can enjoy from late July onwards. Now, the great thing about this time of the year is that if you've taken the trouble to start things off and succession plant, is that there is much to harvest and much to enjoy, provided you can get it out of the ground. Sprouts. I picked a sprout plant here today because we want some sprouts with our meal this evening, so just taking a sprout plant and we shall have those sprouts off there. You can see it's still got the frost on it, but that does make them all the sweeter. And there are, of course, parsnips. They're fine with a frost, and as soon as this ground actually becomes defrosted, we can have those parsnips out. Now, if you remember these broccoli plants, we had the central heads off of here, back in October. And we have been, since then, regularly picking the side shoots that continue to come. They have, of course, slowed down during this cold weather, but you can see there are still plenty that are still coming. It doesn't matter which plant I go to, they're there, so they're still providing us with a good meal. Now, if you have sowed a variety that's due to mature during January, like we have, this is a variety called Rudolph, then you can be having a nice harvest like we have of purple sprouting broccoli. Now, it has slowed down quite a bit this week. Clearly, with the very cold temperatures, the plant is not really growing. But as you can see by the picture, there are still some stems on there for us to have. And you know, we can vary our vegetable diet, you know, between something like sprouting broccoli to the parsnips, to the sprouts, to carrots, to cauliflower, to leek. Then, you know, it's we do get a good variety of vegetables that we can harvest. Now, at the beginning of the video, you saw me inspecting our cauliflowers. So you could have cauliflower to be harvesting during January. You could be harvesting carrots. And of course, you could be harvesting your leeks. And we still have plenty of leeks up the top in bed 5. And of course, up there with our leeks, we also have our celeriac, which we are still harvesting as and when we need. They're fine being out there in all this cold, frosty weather. It's more a case of getting them out of the ground when it's frosty. So, and we did, I think, say something, I don't know, it was for the jobs for December. But I know in one of the videos we recently mentioned, but I'll just say it again, you know, if you can keep an eye on the weather, you know, and just see when it's likely to be really cold and frosty, and, you know, you can harvest some vegetables ahead of time so that you've got your vegetables for the week or for however long that cold spell is going to last. We're predicted to start to warm up a little bit more as we go through this weekend, and so therefore that's not going to be such a problem. But what we did make sure is that we either harvested the vegetables we wanted from our garden, or of course, as you know, if you're a follower of this channel, we also freeze those vegetables that freeze well. And actually, during the week we had some really, really lovely runner beans. Oh, the taste of summer. Now, unfortunately, we didn't manage to raise any swede or kale plants last year, so we have none of that available to harvest in our garden. And again, that was a pest thing that did that, and it was a combination of us being really busy, and there's a lot going on within the family last year, so we weren't always right on top of things, and we noticed there's a lot of pests going on there. But anyway, as a result, those seedlings never made it into the ground. But if you've managed to raise that crop during this month in January, swede and kales are available to you. You lucky things. So back here in the greenhouse, there are actually things to be harvesting here. What there also is that I can see is that this last green pak choy has decided to flower. I'm actually leaving it in there because it's nice to see the yellow flowers during this time of year when there's very few flowers to look at. So when I come in this greenhouse, it's just quite lovely to look at. It's also the colours of our logo.
And Norwich City Football Club.
And Norwich City Football Club. Now, the reason why we are in here is that although we've put things in here that will give us harvest a little bit earlier, or maybe a better harvest, so we've got the spring onions and we've got the garlic. All that garlic is through now. And of course the shallots. We've got the carrots up to a certain height. They're clearly growing during this time of cooler weather, but they wouldn't have frozen in here because the temperature is not going down as low as it is out there. And if it does freeze in here, it will be for a lot less time than it will be outside. As we've been outside, you've seen what the soils looks like, but in here there is no frost whatsoever. But what we do have are things to harvest, which is amazing. And have some radish, and it's approaching lunchtime, so I can do with a few radish. And you can see that the spinach is now coming ready for its harvest. The leaves will get much bigger than this, and you will get a bigger harvest, but between these plants I'm sure I can muster enough of the leaves to put in my sandwich for lunch. And all we do when we come to harvest these is just to simply, between your thumb and forefinger, just pinch between it, and there you have, if not a bit of soiled spinach leaf. And that's how we tend to pick it. We don't pull the whole plant up, we don't wait for it to become really large itself, because what will then happen is it will then sprout more fresh leaves, and these can continue giving us a harvest between now and hopefully sometime towards the end of May, June, especially June, when we'll want to twist these out of here anyway, because we'll be wanting, well, the tomato plants will be in here by then. But those plants will be starting getting quite large then, and we'll no longer want these in here. But in any case, June is a time when spinach wants to rise and flower. So there's little to be gained in keeping them in the ground. So we've regarded this a real success story in being able to grow things and utilising our greenhouse and our polytunnel to grow food and get things like lovely radishes in January. When we now go into next month, we'll actually be sowing our seed for radish, and we probably wouldn't be eating that until March at the earliest. We're enjoying radish in January. In fact, we've been enjoying radish since December. Now we're back inside now, and we can take our first look at the sowing calendar. Now, to run alongside the sowing calendar, you will see shortly that I've also done a plan of our garden, and that should help bring to life what we're talking about in the calendar on that plan. As we've said, we're going to sow the cauliflower Aylesmere in June, and we shall pop it out into the garden in July. Here. But if we go to the next column, we can see that it is a follow-on planting, and it is going to replace our onions Red Baron in plot 4 and in bed 1. And you can see on our garden plan that in plot 4, from January to June, we will be growing our onions Red Baron, Carl Rabbi, and beetroot. But then from June to December, we should be growing cauliflower Aylesmere and Snow March. So you can see how you can then visualize what we have got on our calendar as to what it looks like actually in our garden. So there we have it. They're the things that you could be sowing and what you could be harvesting during the month of January. And if you haven't managed to get anything in the ground, or you're new to gardening and watching this channel and you're thinking, how can and when do I need to get these plants into the ground so that I can have a harvest at this time of the year, and hopefully the garden vegetable calendar that we've produced will be good for you and you can make some real good use of it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please do give us a thumbs up. It does help the channel, I promise you. And of course, as always, do leave your comments down below. Let us know what you may have sowed during the month of January. And do let us know how your garden has been and how it survived during this really intensely cold period that we've had this month. And we shall see you next time.